So Justin, this is a pretty usual site for you and I.
Yeah, this is where we'd be sitting to do the interview.
And what a beautiful studio you've built in here.
Yeah, this is Studio B. Actually, it's. I would have to read
Is that Bravo
That's
or
not
Beta?
right. It's actually I'm incorrect about that. It's Studio D. We skipped B and C because we named it after Dan Gordon. He came and christened the studio with us, and this is actually Studio D.
So this is the Dan.
Yeah, this is the Dan from Gordon Beer. Now, there is something a bit strange here, though, Graham.
Wait a second.
I'm not the interviewer today. I'm the interviewee.
Hold on a second. We got to switch places.
Yeah, you got to sit in the control booth.
Well, now this feels better. I can play with these things. I don't know what they do. I'll press some buttons. I'll check my email.
It doesn't feel better to me. I'm freaking out being on the wrong side of the desk.
Now you know what it feels like for us. And if you slam that beer, I'm going to know.
I fixed that problem in the studio. Slam
Hold
your
on,
beer.
Oh, there you are. Now go.
All right. Yeah. This is now I'm really feeling the switch being on the guest side of the desk.
Well, let's go over the new studio, because this is quite a bit more professional looking.
All right, so this is Studio D, named after Dan Gordon, and we did make several upgrades. For one, I wanted a smaller space, believe it or not, even though we have a lot of guests, because it's easier to control sound. The other studio used to have a big room. The green room is essentially
where people hung out
in the studio also,
yeah.
And it would drive me nuts. I'd hear them talking in my headphones, and so I wanted a smaller space. I wanted a little more control over the sound. We needed to upgrade some of our equipment to be a little more broadcast friendly. And honestly, I really needed it to look more professional. We were getting higher caliber guests coming in. We were getting some media attention from television and other radio stations. And I couldn't have them come into my carpet-swatched garage. So...
Wait, hold on one second. We have a caller on line 3. Oh,
we're getting callers already.
Wait. I love the fact that whole thing had nothing to do with your sponsors ever.
Right. Well, that's a beauty of the Brewing Network. You know, we're not sales guys. We never really went out and pitched anybody. We made friends with guys like you and the Whites at White Labs and some of these other sponsors, Sully at the 21st Amendment. And through the friendship, people like you guys really wanted to support the program. And so the other beauty of that was that none of you ever asked us to change or do anything. I could keep dropping F-bombs and making wiener jokes, and none of you never said anything. Completely different than my terrestrial radio experience, where I had to watch every word I said. I even had to put pants on for that job. And here, you guys never made me do anything.
Well, my first time in, I don't know if you remember this, but you made me be in a contest with Colin on who had the thinner waistline.
That's right. We used to do.
And I lost. I was pissed.
Colin wasn't even a sponsor then. It was just you guys. And I do tend to give my sponsors the worst time.
Treatment.
Yeah, and treatment, which I don't know how I got that business philosophy. It's done well for me.
It worked.
Yeah, it totally worked.
Well, cool. Tell me more about the shows. You got a lot of them now. We started with one show.
Yeah.
I already feel part of it. You started with one show. Let's go over that, and then...
Sure. So we started with the Sunday session, which was really designed to essentially follow my progress through the brewing world. And with my dumb questions starting out as a new home brewer, asking professionals, intermediate and advanced home brewers, that the listeners could kind of play along with me. And so the more questions I had, the better the shows got. And then, of course, callers could call in and do that too. So the idea was to surround me with people who knew what the heck they were doing and give everybody a chance to listen in on that conversation. And then have fun doing it, because I would have quit a long time ago if it couldn't be a fun show. So that's why you end up with a 3.5, 4-hour show, and people complain sometimes that there's not enough information. But that's why we designed the other shows. I knew that we couldn't please everybody with one show. So I met Jamil Zainasheff, and Jamil and John Plissé, the other founder of the Brewing Network, designed their first show called The Jamil Show, which was all about the beer style guidelines as recognized by the BJCP. And
so
essentially...
Sounds pretty boring.
Well, you know, to me, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was a fantastic idea for really hardcore brewers. Bored me to death. I couldn't but they were, you know what, they were fantastic together. And they literally went through every single beer style. Jamil had brewed an award-winning recipe for every single style in the BJCP. And in fact, he brewed it on my 1550.
Perfect.
And so he based the shows on those beers and those styles. And it was a hit. I mean, people loved that show. That show transformed into what is now, they got through all the styles, and now that show is called Can You Brew It? And we brought in Mike McDole, everyone knows him as Tasty around here, and they now, it's still a listener-oriented show. Listeners email in their requests to clone their favorite commercial beers. So Jamil and Tasty go interview the brewer, come up with a recipe, and attempt to clone the beer.
Cool.
So that's another show. And then Jamil, again, developed another show with John Palmer. Now, John Palmer, you know, the man's just, he's a legend. And such a good guy. Of course, the author of How to Brew. And it's my, I think a lot of people, too, it's my brewing Bible.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little bit post-Charlie Papazian in terms of when I came into the beer world. So it wasn't Charlie's books, which are also fantastic, that really taught me to brew. It was John Palmer's book.
I was going to say, when I started brewing, it was The Joy of Homebrewing was the Bible.
Yeah.
And it was very relaxed, don't worry, have a homebrew. It was great. It got you going. It made the everything social.
Yeah.
But really, it lacked some of the technical parts. And
It
that's
did.
where John's a very technical person, and that's where it really shined.
And believe it or not, I needed that information. I'm not a scientist. I'm more on the artistic side. But
What?
I needed that information to help me advance a little bit. So How to Brew is great because it could be for dummies like me. You know, there's about 4 pages of that. Then the next 4 pages gets really advanced and technical. And so it was a bit of both. So Jamil said, hey, why don't we bring John Palmer in to do a show called Brew Strong, and we'll cover brewing techniques, you know, specific brewing techniques every show. And it's also developed into a regular call-in Q&A type show. And another hugely successful show. They have a little bit of fun, but really, if you've got a brew question, write it in, and they'll cover it on the show. So I don't think there's another audio resource like that out there, where literally every technique in brewing gets covered eventually, and they're still doing those shows. And then the last one we do is called The Homebrewed Chef. We had met Sean Paxton, who is known as like the beer chef in not just homebrew, but craft beer. And he wanted to do a show on cooking with beer. And so we now do a monthly Homebrewed Chef.
And no one better. I mean, he's done World Beer Cup dinners, all the homebrew conference dinners,
Yeah.
the NorCal Brew, awesome food. What kinds of things do you cover in there? Like, is it about brewing, or is it more about cooking?
It's not very much about brewing at all, although Sean Paxton can really brew.
Oh, yeah.
He does it. He's brewed some nice beers. It's a lot more about recipes, recipe formulation with beer, pairing with beer. And Sean's really passionate about the slow food movement and things like that, and getting to know your butcher, local food. So a lot of that is a basis for the shows too. He kind of, in fact, starts with those premises and brings them in to how to do them with beer.
So we're not going to cook in the microwave.
We're not going to be doing any microwave cooking. And I keep him out of my kitchen because it's disgusting and I'm ashamed of it. I have like, you know, I've got Montreal chicken seasoning. Like that's seasoning food for me. And Paxton just laughs at me every time he comes to the house.
Yeah.
But it's been it's really been a good show for us. And that whole range of shows is why it's called the Brewing Network. I knew that one show wasn't going to do it, that we'd just get too many complaints. And so now when people complain about one of the shows, I go, well, there's Brew Strong, or there's Can You Brew It, or there's Sean's show. And so we're still doing it, just trying to develop a network of shows so that there's something for everybody in there.
Well, let's go through the usual players. Let's talk the Sunday session.
Okay.
That's the big show as far as I'm concerned. Who are they and where do they sit?
All right. Well, our longest running player, aside from me, is Dr. Scott. And we just call him Doc. And Doc came in as our I don't know if you're familiar with the old show Love Lines, radio show used to be on. Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew.
I live down in Pasadena.
So Adam Carolla is this bozo comedian who was just great on the show, good personality. And Dr. Drew could answer every medical question on planet Earth. And I used to listen to that show, and I just knew the dynamic was perfect. So I met Dr. Scott, who's literally, he's a dentist, so a huge science background. He also has a MoreBeer system. And I thought, I need a Dr. Drew on this show, somebody who can answer every beer question that comes in. And so Doc's been around since day one. He came in thinking he was a guest for the first day, never left. He's been on the show.
I'm sure he's never spent the night on the couch.
Yeah, right, yeah. Most of our cab rides go to Dr. Scott and a lot of couch sleeping. We've recently brought in Nathan Smith. Nate Smith is an amazing home brewer out here. Most of all, he's just got a personality that everybody loves. He's such a nice guy and a great brewer, really knows about how to use hops in beer. And so he's kind of become our hop expert. Tasty McDole, who does the Can You Brew It show also. It took us years. We begged him for about 3 years, please come do the Sunday show with us. He kept saying, no, it's not my thing. You guys do it. Came in one time. Never left.
I was going to say, I remember him showing up a lot with kegs.
Yes.
Not being on the show.
No, he'd come hang out in the green room.
He would serve all of us and then hide back in the green room again.
Well, he's another guy that the listeners just love. He's got a fantastic personality. He's kind of like Papa Tasty around here. And an amazing brewer.
Oh, God, yeah.
So I'll tell you, he doesn't throw much out there in the show. But every sentence that he does throw out, you want to listen to, because it's either funny or it's gold in terms of brewing techniques. It's simple, it's effective. He really pays attention to his brewing process. So Tasty's just great to have on the show. In this chair is usually JP.
Now, did you sanitize that chair before?
There's my sanitation. So it's always handy next to JP's seat. Jason Petros, I met him through MoreBeer. And he's like my right-hand man on the show. Because I tend to just kind of screw around and want to be funny, you need someone to bounce that off of it. He's a lot funnier than I am, if not more crude. A lot funnier than I am. And so to have a color guy, but he also knows how to brew.
Yeah.
He's got a MoreBeer 1550 also.
Exactly.
Plus conical fermenters. Oh, we didn't even show. I have Jamil's conical fermenter too.
I've got another hand.
I'm storing it for him, like indefinitely. And JP is a great intermediate/advanced brewer.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of stuck to a few styles that he really likes, but boy, does he know those styles.
My favorite part about JP is he never has a brew experience go right.
Right.
99% goes perfectly, but he always screws one thing up. And what is beautiful about it is he makes some unique beers because of it, and they've become a few of our recipes over the time because he's just screwed one little thing up by accident, and it makes a beautiful product.
Oh, that's just great about beer in general. It's also great for the show because every screw up I've ever had has turned into a show topic. And then when JP comes in and he doesn't want to talk about them, and I have to draw it at him like, JP, this is good for the listeners. Everybody screws up their beers, man. Chad was our producer for a while, but now he's moved on because he wants to be a pro brewer. So now we have Scott Moskowitz. We just call him Moscow. He's a show producer, was not a home brewer. I needed to bring a guy into the fold who was a radio guy, and he's from CBS Radio. That's where I met him. And too many brewers does not make for good radio, believe it or not.
No, he definitely professionalized things for you guys, and I really liked that. When working with him, it was nothing wrong with anything else, but he was on top of it. He made sure you knew what you were going to be talking about.
Yes, gave you outlines.
Yes,
all stuff I never did. I needed another radio guy, so we brought him in, and he's been great. Bevo is our chat moderator. Although
and where does she sit?
Well, she sits in what we call the dungeon, right over here.
We'll get some coverage of that later.
Yeah, the dungeon. It's essentially, we're in a spare bedroom of my house.
No.
The dungeon is the former closet. It's not a walk-in closet. It's like one of those, like you slide the door sideways kind of closets.
It fits a shirt this way.
Yeah, that's our call screener booth. And what happened was Bevo got pregnant.
I remember that.
And at one point couldn't no longer fit in the call screener booth. So now we rotate. Bevo's back. The baby has exited her body, and now she does it sometimes. Nicole Ernie, who is way overqualified. She's
only the master cicerone.
One of only 4 master cicerones on Earth. She does it sometimes, and then Susie Wynn, who is from a local homebrew club, she now does some chat moderating for us too. All volunteers, these people, and just really helping move the show forward. So I couldn't be happier about the progression of it, to be honest. It's now my full-time job. It has been for a couple years, thanks to the efforts of all the guys that we just mentioned and the listeners. I mean, you could probably attest that our listeners are fanatical, man. They're so good to us.
Well, you do have one of the biggest armies of people, and that's how you coined it. And I always love the fact that you did that, the BN Army, that they are fanatical about letting us know this is why we go to you. And so bang for buck, I don't think anyone even comes close to us advertising with you guys. And so to say thank you to everyone, I love to give stuff away, love to do things like that. Since we're not live, I can't really do a giveaway. So one of your products that you really liked was a refractometer.
Yes.
You filled out our little questionnaire before doing the shooting here. So what I want to do is our basic refractometer. It's a very good refractometer, the MT700. I want to give 20% off for the first 50 people to use BN Army 2012.
Perfect. Oh, that's a great, get it. First 50, get it right now, because it really did change my brewing. I still miss my gravity because I don't pay enough attention, but I'm so much more consistent at taking a pre-boil gravity to know where I'm going to be at the end of my boil. And that's really due to the refractometer, because you got to wait for the temperature change if you use I'll still back it up every now and then just to make sure, but the refractometer really helped me dial in that 1550. So I would recommend it to anybody. Even after the discount, go get a refractometer if you don't have one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Justin. We appreciate your time and letting us see the studio.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for the 1550. I couldn't be more thankful for that. And thank you for you're our first sponsor, and you've always stuck with us. We've developed a great friendship out of it, and I just thank you so much.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers, brother.